Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is Money Stop Monday, episode 10, and we are joined by a very special guest. Please welcome Cragus into the Money Stop podcast studio. We are very excited to have him with us today. Um, going to talk about some things real muscle related. We'll talk to him a little bit about his season so far, and yeah, I'm looking forward. Thanks for joining us, Cragus.
Yeah, no worries. Good to have me on. Finally get on here with you guys.
All right. Well, I guess we can talk about Darlington first, um, seeing as it is the most recent race that happened. I was not in the race, but I at least will um, try and talk about it, at least from what I saw on the stream. Um, and you guys can fill in the blanks as well. So this race was very I guess there was some strategy involved, but it was more of a pack race. It was not what I was expecting with a full field. I thought it would get more strung out with the strategy, and and there wouldn't really be a favorite. But Land really seemed like he was up there all race long, and he really showed that he had the fastest car. Um, Sometimes he got shuffled out, but he made his way back up. So he definitely deserved the win, I think, um, from what I saw. And there was a lot of passing, I will say. It didn't really seem like people were running in the same position all race. If there was chances to make up spots, people definitely took advantage of that. But I would say from what I saw as a spectator, because again I wasn't in the race, I would say it was a pretty decent race. What would you guys say?
Um, yeah, I think it was a pretty good race. I think it was kind of difficult to pass from my perspective. Um, and you really kind of had to be conservative in what you were doing because the track is so narrow, and if you made a wrong move, you were just gonna kind of wreck everybody. So, I was definitely playing it a lot safer than I normally would, but yeah, you could make up spots if you wanted to. It just I guess that's just kind of how Darlington is. It was just a one lane racetrack, and um, it wasn't super easy to make passes, I guess, from my perspective.
I,
Craigus, what about
I
you?
thought it was a good track. Um, I thought it was a good race. Only thing I wasn't a big fan of was kind of the only way you could get up front is if you kind of drove like a bully. Like you got to move people out the way, give them a big
Yeah.
nudge to move them up the groove a little bit. But outside of that, I enjoyed the race. It's just that's not really the kind of racing you want to race around people because it's easy to make them mad that way.
Yeah.
So outside of that, I'd rate it pretty highly though. It was a fun track.
What would you guys say about this being a playoff track or a championship track again? Would you put it there, or would you keep it in the regular season?
Um, I I maybe championship, but I don't know about playoffs. I mean, maybe if we added multi groove to Darlington, I would change my mind. But how it currently is, I don't think I would like to see it in the playoffs, personally. But I would be interested to see how
I,
it would be with multi groove.
and I would agree with Laner. I think if you could get like both lanes working in the corners, it would be probably a good track for championship or maybe playoffs. But I think in its current state, it was not a very good move for a playoff round because it's just going to make people angry at each other for like just the way you got to race there, and that's not the way you want to race in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the lineup that we have is actually a good lineup for playoff tracks. Um, there is a few tracks, um, not on the schedule, but just in general, that you kind of have to push people out of the way to make up positions, and those tracks I certainly would not want to see in the playoffs. If it made drivers feel a certain way, because you have to kind of be dirty to make up spots. But um, okay, good. We got some thoughts on that at least. But what are your thoughts? This is new. We just had this past weekend. What are your thoughts on the addition of the yellow line? Obviously, the last race, the last time we were here, we saw a lot of drivers going down to even the last lane to prevent drivers from drafting and from staying behind them, and just trying to break the line in general. So, what are your thoughts about moving that line back and creating kind of a barrier between like where to go on the track? And would you want this back for the future?
Um, Honestly, I I think it kept the field closer together, but I didn't really notice much difference personally. Like, um, I felt like the racing was very similar to the last time we came here, other than obviously drivers not being able to use the whole length of the backstretch. But other than that, I don't really think it changed too much, in my opinion.
I would agree with Lane, I think. Um, it didn't really change the way people would drive on the straightaways. They'd still kind of shuffle around in those lanes, try and keep draft out of people's car. But honestly, I don't think it's much of a difference. The only thing it probably changed would be less dive bombing in the turns, but then you just still got a more jumbled pack mess going into the turns. It's just as much wrecking, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, wasn't in the race, but I could tell from just a lot of the drivers that it like wasn't really helping. Um, and I don't really think there is a way to solve that issue, but I guess it was just something experimental that we tried to implement this weekend, to try and improve it. But uh, I don't know. There's no really way to figure out, I guess. But um, yeah, I'm I'm glad to get your opinions on that because I was curious to see how that was going to play out this past weekend. And um, yeah, that definitely sucks though that it didn't really help that much, or didn't really like change anything. I thought it would at least change the way people would race, but I guess not. Um, all right, but let's see here. What do we have up next on the lineup to talk about? Um, let's talk some points. So let's get the points up on the screen. So I'll go through, I guess, the full list. So Land is the current points leader at 196 points. Again, past winner this past weekend, takes the points lead. Laner follows right behind him in second at 184 points. Then myself, I fell to third. Um, so yeah, and then I have 173 points. Wendigo is fourth with 161 points. Lego is fifth with 150 points. Aiden is sixth with 146 points. He is tied with Slater, who is seventh and right on the cut line. Then we go below the cutoff line. Jax is eighth with 142 points. Ninth is Icy at 128 points. Keep in mind he is locked in with a win. So then we move to Cragus. He is at 113 points in 10th place. And Rondo is 11th with 39 points. So I would say right off the bat, the battle that I'm watching once again is the cutoff line. It is very, very, very close. And it seems to be around the same amount of points every week. I don't know if you guys would agree, but it definitely
Yeah.
seems like they're from like maybe fifth to eighth. I would say it's been the same back and forth every week, just because the points are so close. But um, what are you guys looking at, and what do you guys see off of the points?
Um, well, I'm still concerned about you, Cragus, because you're like 30 points out of that cutoff line battle. They're like all in the 140 range, and you're in like 113. Um, and being like what 30 points out, that's like a whole race. That's like a race win actually, because you get 30 points from a race win. So um, I'm concerned about your team, and I I don't know. Like you guys are really gonna have to put together some great races coming up if you want to get in on points. But other than you guys, I'm I don't know. Like it's really interesting. Slater's been kind of iffy about attendance. Jax has been showing really great speed lately, and Aiden has been showing good speed and Lego as well. So honestly, I feel good about Wendigo at this point, um, but I'm not as comfortable about anybody else below that. I think that could go either way. So I don't know. IC obviously is locked in, assuming he meets like the minimum like attendance requirements or whatever. But yeah, that's my initial thoughts on it.
I'm kind of looking at that Lego down to Jack's like position for those last three spots as well. I think that area where they're all generally in about the same amount of points. That's going to be the battle for the cutoff is going to be the most heated one. I don't think the top three is going to do much of anything on like regular season champion or anything like that. I think it's just going to be this battle for the final cutoff spots is going to be the toughest one we're going to have to watch for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to point out something because I think it's interesting. Week 5, Lego, Aiden, and Slater are 8 points apart. This week they're 4 points apart, so they're running like really, really similar right now. Yet none of these guys have been able to win, which is really, really interesting to me. Um, and yeah, it could be attendance, it could be just the luck that they have, or they just didn't play their strategy right week in or week out. But what is it going to take for these guys to break away from how close that points battle is and maybe lock in a win, or just to have a better performance of a day?
Um, I I don't know. One of those guys is just gonna have to flip that switch. Um, Slater runs really good whenever he attends races. Attendance is really my biggest concern with him.
He
But I
almost
think it,
won, right, on Saturday.
yeah. I mean, he
Oh,
was leading like on the last lap, I believe.
Yeah.
At least coming to the last lap. So Slater is more than capable of winning a race. And honestly, I would predict him to win a race before the playoffs. Um, Aiden and Lego are capable of winning races, but like I don't know if I would predict that. But I don't know. I mean, we still have Talladega coming up. We still have 2 tracks in the regular season with the multi groove, which is going to be a total wild card because we haven't had a race with that package yet. So there's still a lot of, and we have a street course coming up. So there's still a lot of events that are total wild cards that anybody could win. So I don't really think you can count anybody out. But of the people that haven't won a race, I would probably feel the best about Slater at this point.
The only thing I would have to disagree there with is if Slater gets into one of those, you got to win, or like he's got to score a lot of points to come in to the playoffs. The only thing I'd be worried about is kind of when that starts to happen, he races a little more aggressive, and then it's easier to make enemies on the track when you're racing more aggressive. So the only thing I'd be concerned there is if he gets in that, he's got to win, or he's got to like really get those good finishes. I'd be worried about him making enemies on the track, and then
I think Slater
it could
already
be,
has quite a few enemies on the track, and
yeah,
that's a problem because you like I don't know what happened at the end of the Darlington race, but it sounds like he was raced a little bit unfairly, and I didn't see it, so I'm not gonna comment on it because I don't really know what happened. I haven't even seen the replay. But what I will say is that if you make enemies in this series, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to win races or get the benefit of the doubt. Um, I mean that at the end of the day, that's just what it comes down to. People aren't going to let you win races if they don't respect you. So being respected is definitely a big part of getting good finishes.
Yeah, and taking a look at the schedule here coming up, um, we've got the All Star race coming up this weekend, but also we've got Kansas, and then the debut of the Multi Groove update, and then Iowa, Walt Disney, Talladega, DC, and then Chicagoland, and Martinstown is the cutoff. Um, Cragus, I want to ask you specifically, are you guys circling any of these tracks as potential wins or just good runs for you guys? I know it's a really like bad mix of tracks like just coming up for you guys because a lot of these tracks are new or they could be wild cards, considered wild cards. So, you guys have never run there before or you just don't know what to expect. So, it could be considered a really bad lineup of tracks for you guys. But are you looking at any tracks specifically right now that stand out to you? Is Craig still here?
Um, that is a good question.
Oh, well, we we're gonna have to take a quick break on that question. Craigis might have to slip out. But Laner, I'll ask you. Um, so put yourself in one of these driver's seats. You're locked in, so obviously this is not a situation you have to worry about. But um, with a situation like Craigis, what track would you be circling?
Um, I think Kansas and Chicagoland seem like the most straightforward tracks we have left, especially with the multi-groove update. You know, you can kind of control what line you take, and you have somewhat of you have a little bit of control over your race. Iowa, I I mean, I don't really think anybody except for Land can feel comfortable about winning theirs. So, um, really, other than Kansas and Chicagoland, these are all just wild cards. You got Talladega, which is going to be crazy. Uh, Disney, we've never raced there before. A street course, stuff. So yeah, I have no idea. We have two straightforward races left. Other than that, it's just complete wild cards.
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I'm just gonna throw out my points before I gotta dash, but sorry about that, guys. But I think for the rest of the season, we're circling. I think Iowa is a track we ran good at last year, and any super speedways, we usually have lots of speed in super speedways. So that's kind of where I'm looking, where I got to win a race. And at this point in the season, I'm just I'm just racing to win. I'm not even bothering with the points anymore. It's just trying to get a win and get a groove going. But yeah.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Um, Thanks for joining us, man. Sorry that
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't stick around, but
Yeah,
hopefully
just
we can have you back.
sorry couldn't work out today.
No, it's all good. We'll have you back on a different episode when we know you can
Yep.
at least stick around.
Alrighty. Yep. Uh, I'll see you guys later.
All right. See
See,
ya. Oh man. Okay. And then there were two. Um. All right. Back to what we were talking about. So, just with the points, I think that yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out over the next couple weeks. I think it's interesting because the tracks before the All Star race are like very skilled tracks. They're very um, like they'll test everything in the car and you as a driver, and from everything after the All Star race to the cutoff, it's kind of like all bets are off. It's like whoever can lock themselves in, whoever can get a win, um, it's yours.
yeah.
There's no clear favorites, I think, for these next couple weeks, which is a little scary to think about actually, but um, it it feels kind of uh, it feels kind of weird, but also nice at the same time. Because usually when you go to a track, there's always a favorite, and we won't have that feeling for the next couple weeks. I mean, when we go to Iowa, we know who the clear favorite will be, but again, it could be anybody's race. And yeah, these next couple weeks are definitely going to be crazy. So whether you're racing or you're just watching the race, you're going to definitely have to tune in and be a part of it because it's going to be crazy. It will be. Um, but all right, moving on from Darlington and the points, uh, something that stemmed from that race was a penalty that was given to the 19 car that is Wendigo uh, at Go Fast Motorsports. So, Laner, you can clear this up, but my understanding of it is that he was penalized after stage two was over, and it was for blowing his tires. He blew his tires on the front stretch, um, and he did not serve his penalty at all the way to the finish of the race. Is that correct?
So I can give a brief overview of what happened. And I wish Cragus was still here to kind of give his side of this, but so we were going through a pit cycle at the end of stage two. Um, I think the stage had ran green, so everybody needed to pit. But he stayed out and he won the stage. But as he crossed the start finish line, his tires blew. So in the rule book, if you blow your tires or run out of fuel, that's a pass through penalty. So Cragus told him um, that he needed to serve a pass through penalty. And from my viewpoint, he never served a pass through penalty. And Cragus told him whenever he did his green flag pit stop for stage three to wait 10 additional seconds in his pit box. Um, I'm not gonna sit here and say he did or didn't because I I don't know for sure. All I know is that it appears that he didn't because whenever he came out of pit road, he cycled right back up there with the leaders. And logically, if you serve a 10-second penalty, you're not gonna cycle back out with the leaders. You're gonna cycle back out between fifth and or eighth place. You're not gonna cycle back into the top four.
And
That's just
when he came in, was he with the leaders or was he far back?
he was in the top three or four,
Hmm.
and then he came down pit road. He was supposed to serve an additional 10-second penalty, but he cycled back out. like in the top four. He was racing up front for the lead at the end of the race. So um, that's what makes everybody believe that the penalty was not served.
Interesting. Um, so as a result of that, it came out after the race that he was credited with a last place finish. Um, and where did he finish originally?
I think like third or fourth.
Hmm.
Not
Yeah,
sure. It was
so
somewhere up in the top five though, for sure.
yeah, it definitely hurt him a little bit in the points with just closing the gap to the top three. Um, but he was credited with a last place finish um, at the end of the race. So I don't really know what to make of the penalty just because I wasn't there. I didn't see anything with my own eyes. I saw what I saw on the stream and that was it. Um, and that sucks because that's like all I saw was the racing um, for the lead on the stream, so I couldn't really keep up with the storylines. But um, yeah, I just wanted to put that out there that after the race, Wendigo was penalized. So definitely watch for that too, because I would say anytime a driver gets a points penalty during a race that affects them in the points, um, it definitely will hurt them in the long run. And I don't know, I don't know how many points he missed out on. It was probably only a couple, but just with how close everything is this season, there's no room for mistakes, no room for errors um,
Yeah.
amongst anybody. It like not even just referring to Wendigo. We've seen a lot of mistakes out of drivers this season that have cost them uh, big time in the points. And I just I think that you really have to capitalize and um, you have to be more aware of like what the bigger picture is. Um, like for Cragus example, right at Homestead last weekend, when he was turned with like 2 or 3 to go, he missed out on all those points of maybe even winning the race or just having a good finish. That could have helped him big time with closing up to the cut line, and it really sucks that it ended that way. Um, but that's how it ended, and there, like I said, there's no room for mistakes this season, no room for errors. If you get wrecked, that's like it's gonna cost you big time in the points. So, um, um, I think that just drivers need to be more aware of that. I don't know if people are more aware of that though. But yeah.
Y- Yeah, and I will say though, Wendigo is still probably the only person on points that could feel comfortable. We don't have the points up right now, but I think it seemed like he had a pretty good gap. Yeah, he has an 11-point gap over Lego. So, I mean, he's pretty comfortable on points right now, but obviously he still isn't fully comfortable because he doesn't have a win.
Hmm.
But out of the winless drivers, I would say he is by far the only person that could even feel somewhat comfortable.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like I'm not gonna drag it out because truly we don't need to. Um, but it is a conversation for points. That's all it is a conversation for. Um, Team made a mistake, you know, and whether he served his penalty or not, that was on the driver. But uh, he lost points as of that. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
but let's see. Moving right along here. So this was the part where we were going to interview Cragus, and we were going to talk about him and his first race in a Chevy this past weekend. Um, I guess we can kind of We can talk a little bit about it, but I would like to save the extensive conversation for when we have him back. So for now, I guess we can talk about just how his race was um, at Darlington. Um, so for anybody that doesn't know or is kind of out of the loop, this uh, it was after Homestead. He announced that he was leaving GFM and would be moving to Rocky Top, and the team was originally affiliated with GFM and is no longer affiliated with GFM, and they have switched to Chevy. Cragus had to receive a waiver in order to keep his points because there is a rule that if you switch manufacturers, you will restart and go back to zero with points. So he received a waiver to keep the points that he has earned thus far and to switch to a different team and different manufacturer and different number. Um, I think that opens up, and I know we talked a little bit about the waiver last episode, but I think it was before uh, the board of directors announced their um, decisions or whatever. Um, but I would say that it opens kind of like a new plethora of like possibilities with a waiver going forward. And I don't want to say like everybody should submit a waiver if like they're gonna change teams or like if there's gonna be like constant movements, then my recommendation would just be to again be with your team until the end of the season and you know try and tough it out as best as you can. But we don't know at the same time what some of those situations may be behind closed doors. So yeah, there is that, but that is what happened or what has happened between the last episode and now. So I would say his first race in the 5 car at Darlington was pretty good. He won the first stage, and he was pretty fast all night, I would say. But again, just kind of faded as the race went on. Um, so I kind of worry about like where this team is headed before the playoffs. We kind of touched on it with the points, but um, I just think that they're running out of time to grab a win and have good runs. They need to start clicking off on all cylinders and really, really making up the gap to at least get within the conversation of the
Yeah.
cutoff line. They are nowhere close to being in the conversation right now, and that's kind of what's worrying. Um, and I think that they just need to really, really capitalize and just try not to make any mistakes or put themselves in a position where they could get taken out or, just being in the right place at the right time, I think is going to be very key. Right now, again, they sit at 113 points, and Jax is right below the cutoff line at 142 points. Jax has been attending all of the races. Um, and Slater's been off and on, but um, Jax has been there, and I think he's gonna have to focus on trying to pass him in the points if they cannot win. But you heard it from him that they're trying to win. They're not really looking at the points, so I wonder um, how that will look, or how those points will change in a couple weeks. But Laner, what are your thoughts on um, how he did on Saturday in his first race in the 5?
Yeah, I think he did. He had a good race. I think he kind of fell off on the final pit sequence. If I'm, yeah, he did because he finished behind me. He had a good race going. I guess the team just didn't really execute the strategy correctly or something. I don't really know. But getting into the point situation, he's 30 points out of even being in that cutoff battle. And something that Aiden brought up in general a few moments ago was that our points are only separated by one. So like finishing positions. So in order for Cragus to realistically make up 30 points to the cutoff, um, he's probably going to need to go out and win like several stages. Um, like that's really the only way I see him making up that big of a gap. Like he's going to really have to go on a tear and just start winning stage after stage, and also finishing in the top 5 of most of these races. Like if he doesn't get a top 5 every race before the playoffs, I don't see any way he's going to make up that gap. Like that's 30 points out of just the cutoff battle. That's not even 30 points out of being in the playoffs. That's just to even get in the conversation.
Yep.
So like that's a whole race win. You get 30 points for winning a race. So he's really far back, and I don't know, that team's just really going to have to go out there and start finishing. Um, they're going to have to start winning stages. They're going to have to start finishing top 3 in stages and finishing top 3 in like every single race to even have a shot at it. Unless they win, obviously, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I think what makes it harder for them too is that the teams that have already won races or are in a more comfortable spot, um, they don't care, you know? Like we're just racing to win more races. You know, we're already at a point where yeah, we can pick up stage wins and all this stuff in addition to that. But at the end of the day, we're racing now for just building up on our wins. And Cragus is still searching for his first win. So, um, you know, the points are very much more valuable for him compared to some of these other drivers that have already won a race. So, I'm interested to see how maybe they can change up their strategy in the next couple weeks um, to get themselves into that conversation. But we'll leave the rest of that conversation for another time. Um, like I said, I don't want to go far down the rabbit's hole um, until we have him back and we can kind of ask him questions about the team and
Yeah.
see what's going through his head. But um, next, I wanted to touch on land because land obviously won this past weekend, and I will say this: land is back. He was having an off couple weeks, but he is right back to his old fashioned form with winning races and constantly being in the conversation again. The first couple weeks were very rough for this team, but they definitely have found something, and whatever it is working. Um, so I want to touch on, I guess, what this means. This win means for maybe the rest of the field. Um, I think because we touched on it when Cragus was still here. You know, he had a very good weekend. He was up front. He won the race, but uh, he led a lot of laps, and he didn't really make a lot of mistakes. Like it wasn't a flawless night, but he didn't really make a lot of mistakes. And he collected points all night, so it was a very good night for the team. Um, but I would say that this win definitely puts the field on notice. Um, because once Land gets in a rhythm, I feel like of finding something, he can become unstoppable almost, and that's like I feel like what this team has always been. Like once they find something, it's just hit the ground and go. And this is the defending series champion again. We were talking about him a couple episodes ago how much this team was struggling, and You know, we weren't sure originally if he was going to be out several weeks, missing out on all these points and even maybe playoff races. Like we weren't sure what was going to happen. Now we have a kind of a bit of an update on that, but um, the uncertainty the first couple weeks of the season has definitely um, been lifted off his shoulders, and he can kind of get back to just focusing on racing and being there week in and week out. And I think we definitely saw that on full display this past weekend at Darlington. What would you say, Laner?
Yeah, I was really impressed with that team's performance this weekend, and um, it really wasn't ever a doubt. I think he had the best car all night, and they capitalized on it. They played their strategy right, and they stayed up front all night. So he definitely deserved that win, and he goes back to back at Darlington after winning the championship. So yeah, I land is always going to be in the conversation for um, wins and championships and things like that. But it's still really impressive when he goes out and dominates a race like that, especially with how many good drivers we have in the series right now. Um, so yeah, I think he has proven that he's going to be one of the people to beat. Probably going to make it back to the championship four. So he's going to try to win his third championship this season.
Yeah, and maybe an early prediction from you there. Maybe an early prediction. Who knows? Um, and the other side of this too, because like I had said, he was planning on being out multiple races um, for an impending surgery or something he was having done outside of here. It was going to be out for several weeks, and the from what we're hearing, that may not be the case. Um, and he may only be missing a couple weeks now, maybe even one or two, maybe none. We don't know, but as for right now, he's still planning on being very involved at the track um, and still contending week in and week out. But I would say if Land's going to be at the race, you know he's going to be a threat. Um, and now this race, now this driver has won two races. Um, you know they're definitely going to start building on that momentum and working towards the playoffs now. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think it's safe to say that Land is back definitely, and looking forward to seeing what he does over these next couple weeks when we hit those wild card races. All right, so this is the fun part of the episode. We mentioned it a little earlier this episode and talked about it a little in the previous episode, but the multi groove update is going to be implemented starting this weekend at Kansas. Um, and I, for one, am very, very excited for this. Um, I think that it's definitely going to spread the field out just so we're not like running in a pack. But I also think it'll open up another opportunity for passing and um, just to create more, uh, what's the right word? Like versatility. Um, Whether you want to run one or the other, you're not stuck to one option now. I think it's definitely going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And I hope that it really, really impresses. Oh boy, I just disconnected. I didn't even realize. Um, but I hope it definitely impresses this weekend. And Laner, if you want to speak to it a little more, you can. But
And I guess um, I know there hasn't been an official announcement, um, but I think we should just let everybody know that the plan or what we're hearing is that the All Star race is going to be ran on Friday night and Kansas is going to be on Saturday, just to clear any confusion on that. I would expect an official announcement on that sometime soon, but I just wanted to clear the air. Whenever you hear CSP saying Kansas is going to be this weekend, he's not misspeaking. That actually is the case. Um, but more information should be released on that at some point. I just wanted to clear the air on that so people don't think that you're misspeaking or whatever. But the Kansas race is scheduled for this weekend, so I just wanted to put that out there. But in terms of the racing, I definitely think that it will open up the door for a lot more lead changes. Um, and I'm hoping that it will not have as many wrecks because we won't all be stuck to the same lane. You know, we can kind of take whatever line we want, and if there is a wreck, we can avoid it more efficiently rather than just being stuck to the bottom. Um, so I'm really excited for it, and I think Kansas is a perfect track to try it out on because it's a really wide racing surface. So you could see people on the wall, you could see people in the middle or on the bottom, whatever. I think it's a perfect track for that. And I'm really interested to see what people run up front because this is our first chance to really get an idea for the championship race because Texas will run the same package later in the season. So this will really be our first look at who we can expect to contend for the championship later in the season. And we also have two playoff tracks, Las Vegas and Charlotte, that will run this package. So I think this weekend will really tell us a lot about who will advance in the playoffs and who could potentially win the championship.
And for just strictly speaking with regular season tracks, correct me if I'm wrong, is it going to be Kansas and Chicagoland that have the multi-groove update?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, and again, looking at the schedule, Kansas and Chicagoland have quite a few weeks between them. So, um, hopefully, like, not a lot will have to change with the multi groove if something goes wrong or if something comes up. Because that is one race before the cutoff line. So, that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out with the multi groove there, too. Chicagoland, when I tested there last week, I ran a couple laps. Definitely very, very fun. I think the multi groove will work very, very well on that track, and I'm looking forward to having a full set of cars on that track. I think, and this may be a bold take, but it could even be a playoff track if the race goes well, or even a championship track. Um, I think Texas is great, but some of these new tracks we have no idea how they're going to run, and I think that's what's so uh, mysterious and exciting about all of this is like the possibilities that could affect next season. But um, I'm looking forward to seeing how this has update is going to turn out, and I think a lot of people will enjoy the refresher of just having something new in the game. And we got the spectate system last weekend, and we'll have the multi group for this weekend. So I think definitely some exciting things to be talked about, and just a good time for the league right now for updates. But um, yeah, that's all I had to contribute with the multi groove stuff. We'll have to see how it all turns out this weekend at Kansas. I'm not sure what to expect. I don't think anybody does. Um, but hopefully we'll have some more information for you on the next episode of the Money Stop. To wrap things up, as always, we do the rate the race. This is a good segment for us just to um, really kind of showcase what we felt about the race that was run this past weekend. And I'll hand it off to Laner first to give his thoughts on Darlington.
Um, I thought Darlington was a decent race. I mean, it wasn't bad. I think it was pretty good. If I had to rate it, I would probably give it like a 70%.
Okay. That's reasonable. Um, I would say from because I watched this online, so it was a very different perspective. Um, I would say I would probably give it like maybe a 55. Um, like I don't know what to make of the race. It was enjoyable. I think there was passing and it was very very good. But I'm just not sure really what to make of it based off of like what people were saying. It just didn't seem like a lot of people um, enjoyed the track or just enjoyed um, the racing, from what I understand. Um, yeah, I mean, it wasn't really that bad, but it was kind of a mid race. Just that's all I'm gonna say. It was a mid race. Um,
I agree.
yeah, I would say if like okay, I'll give it a 60%. Yeah, I'll bump it up to a 60. Um, but still, I think there could be some improvements with the track. Um, one improvement I don't know, but something to think about with that for the future. Um, but anyways, oh man, what an episode! We had Cragus in and out in like 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
we were like one topic after the next. But that's gonna do it for us here on the Money Stop. Another episode in the books. Don't forget to tune in to Kansas this weekend coming up, as well as the All Star race. It's going to be a double header plus the truck race, most likely. So definitely tune in for both races. We hope to see you there. Um, keep an eye out for the schedule coming this week. And yeah, we'll catch you next week after Kansas and the All Star race. We'll be back to recap both races. So be a very very fun episode. Um, from Laner and I. Good night, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of the Money Stop.
See ya.